It's no place to take a child. And I can't concentrate on missionary work if you're there, said my mother. I'll be too busy making sure no harm comes to you. I can watch over myself, I offered. Not in Africa. You'll be with Aunt Magnolia and Aunt Pigg for a few months, said my father. Is that how long you'll be gone? I asked querulously, because that was a long time and certainly longer than I wanted to spend with Aunt Magnolia and Aunt Pigg. It depends, said my mother, getting a dreamy look in her eye. It might be longer. I might turn out to be good at this. At missionary work? My father snorted. I told you to forget all that nonsense. Well, how am I supposed to finish out my school year? I asked. It's my last year at Critz Elementary. I can't believe you're making me move to Floyd and miss the last weeks at Critz. We thought of that. Aunt Pigg and Aunt Magnolia have graciously agreed to move here while you finish school, and then during the summer months you will move back up there to stay with them in Floyd. You're going to be gone summertime too? I wailed as the realization hit me. I could hardly believe this was happening. And Floyd in the summer? What about baseball? I played baseball all summer long in the field by our house. It was the best part of any summer. We might be, said my mother. You never can tell. You can tell, said my father. I told the Fillmore Brush Company I would be back by July. He looked at me meaningly. I knew he thought this whole thing was a great indulgence, and was hoping it would settle my mother down for the next 10 or 15 years. Later, in a man-to-man talk, he told me that women could become terribly flighty in middle age. It was best to hook them when they were young and leave them before it started happening. But the thing was, he said, by that time, if you loved them, well, you were stuck. I think it's important we have these talks now, he said, patting my shoulder, just in case. In case of what? I asked. In case one of those things that happen to people in Africa happens to us. One of those bad things, those disease things, or light aircraft things, or bad drinking water things, or large animal things. There's no point pretending that people aren't worried about these things, and the reason they worry is that they're really, really dangerous. But I believe you should be clear about the danger before we go. Although, realistically speaking, we'll probably come back just fine with a lot of swell photos. Well, I hope so, I said. We all hope so, said my father. Except perhaps your mother, who I think is looking forward to the dangerous part the most. Isn't there anyone who could stay with me besides Aunt Magnolia and Aunt Pigg? I asked. What's wrong with Magnolia and Pigg? Asked my father in surprise, and really, it was kind of hard to put your finger on. Aunt Magnolia and Aunt Pigg came into town for holiday meals and only stayed a couple of hours. A lot of the time was spent outside our house because they both smoked, and Mom wouldn't let them smoke in the house. And they didn't talk to me. I don't think they liked children. Maybe they just didn't like boys. They were extremely adults with no play in them. I was always excused immediately after family meals to go watch television. I think they somehow made my mother feel ashamed of me, as if my table manners weren't quite right, or I wasn't quite smart enough, or my conversation, which was non-existent when they were around, wasn't quite up to par. I just wish someone was staying with me who liked me a little more, I said. Good opportunity for them to get to know you, said my father, patting my shoulder again absently, as if he had already moved on in his head. Heart-to-heart completed, and now he was worrying about the packing or something. And for you to get to know them, he added suddenly, a bonus thought. So my mother went ahead with her plans for Africa, although it turned out that she couldn't become a Mormon missionary on such short notice. The church said they were sorry about that, but hoped she would still think about becoming Mormon while in Africa, should she end up going anyway. One of my mother's contacts at the Mustard Seed, the homeless shelter where she volunteered, offered to write to someone he knew who was helping to build a school in Africa. He thought they would welcome a couple more pairs of hands. I think my mom was hoping for free accommodations and food. She needed to feel the trip had a purpose that was nobler than making my father do what she wanted to do for a change. At least that's how it seemed to me. Maybe I was being unfair, but she did let my father know that she planned to tell everyone she was a Mormon missionary anyway. "You mean you're going to lie? About something like that?" asked my father. He was becoming more and more perturbed about my mother, who had never broken out in this way before. "It will open doors," said my mother. "I'm not going to lie," said my father. "I think that's just nuts." I didn't know where all this would lead them. I thought my father might even cancel the trip. I couldn't believe that he was going to go along to Africa with her under those circumstances, but he did. The flu. After my aunts came, I moved into my closet to get as far away from them as I could. Not that they ever came looking for me that first week. I moved a small battery-operated light into it, and some pillows and blankets and a stack of books, and I closed the door and tried to pretend my aunts didn't exist while they were downstairs, ignoring me. I didn't even know that they knew that's where I was until the second week. "Henry, come out of the closet," yelled Aunt Pigg from the bottom of the stairs. Aunt Pigg could not bear sleeping upstairs in the spare room or my parents' bedroom. It was too close to the sound of my breathing. She never said this exactly, but it was what I was able to surmise. So she slept in the basement on our rec room sofa. I learned a lot about Aunt Pigg's and Aunt Magnolia's pecking order that first week. Aunt Magnolia got first pick of everything. First pick of the TV shows, first pick of what they made for dinner, first pick of the best place to sleep. If you discounted the upstairs rooms, then the best place to sleep was on the living room couch, because the living room was air-conditioned, unlike the rec room where Aunt Pigg ended up. The whole of the South was having an especially hot spring. Temperatures rose early and high. Our basement should have been air-conditioned, but the air-conditioning system my father had explained to me had been a lemon. "Son," he said, "many of the things you are going to buy in your life are going to be lemons. There is nothing you can do about this. Do not blame yourself. Do not blame your spouse. Try not to blame each other." "Can you blame the company you bought it from?" I asked. "Not always," he said. My father was a fair man. Except for the air conditioning, which was of prime importance, the rec room was more desirable. It had its own bathroom. There was a television down there, and a pool table if Aunt Pigg cared for a little midnight game of pool. It was certainly more private than Aunt Magnolia's living room couch, where anyone who came to the door could see how she slept, the covers all messed up everywhere, the empty cracker boxes lying about, or the spilled Coke. Not that there were these things initially. Aunt Magnolia was very neat until she got the flu. That's why Aunt Pigg was calling me downstairs. I really did not see what I could do about it, although I was sympathetic. I could hear Aunt Magnolia throwing up in the bathroom. "She's terribly, terribly sick, and I'm worried," said Aunt Pigg, pacing around and wringing her hands. "Magnolia thinks it's the result of quitting smoking, but surely not. I quit smoking before we came to. We thought it was a good opportunity, since your mother won't let us smoke in the house. But I'm not throwing up. I think it's time we called your parents' doctor. Do you know his name?" I tried to give her the name of my own doctor, but she said that Aunt Magnolia couldn't be seen by a pediatrician. Even I must know that. She must have been very worried about Aunt Magnolia because, although distant and not familiarly welcoming, my aunts were never intentionally unpleasant. Later I found out I simply hadn't known them well enough to know just how unpleasant they could be. "I get the flu all the time," I said to Aunt Pigg. In elementary school, people throw up a lot. My mother said that she went many grown-up years never throwing up, but as soon as I started going to elementary school and bringing home germs, everyone in the family began throwing up. When you're around elementary school children, you get used to it.